Becoming, Arriving, Joining, and Transforming in the Classroom, a Teaching and Learning Manifesto by Dr. Abby Doherty. So hi all, I'd like to welcome you to our class together and tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Dr. Abby Doherty and my pronouns are she and her. I live in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, and my full-time gig is at Drexel University in the Department of Creative Art Therapies. You can see me with some of my work friends there. And I have a beautiful toddler, Lila Sunshine. She is the light of my life, and she was my coworker through COVID. And I am a self-proclaimed crazy cat lady, and would love to see any of your pets as we're moving through the quarter or semester together. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about my educational ride or history because it really influences the way I operate in the classroom. So first of all, I went to a very progressive elementary school, or one of them, Oak Lane Day School. And here the learning was really focused on learning through the arts. And so everything that we learned through engaging in some way with the arts. So if we were learning about the president, then we might also learn how to use oil paints or artistic medium that were historically relevant at the time. And that really was a pivotal experience for me because it really helped me to understand how creativity helps to create engagement and excitement about the learning process. Around the age of 5 or 6, while I was going to Oak Lane Day School, my parents found out that I had dyslexia. So I then switched to go to the center school, which was a school specifically for students with learning disabilities like ADD or dyslexia or other processing kinds of issues. And this was an unbelievably an enormously supportive learning experience for me where, the skills that I learned here, the adaptive learning skills, went on to influence and create positive learning experiences for me across my lifespan and of course helped me to get through my PhD. So I'm a huge proponent of early intervention for children with learning disabilities. And I share this also to say that if you have a learning disability, I consider it an issue of access to information for your accommodations. And so please don't hesitate to tell me what's real for you. Then, as my parents had me when they were young, we were on a bit of a journey because both my parents are in the psychology profession. My dad is an organizational psychologist. He got his first faculty appointment up at Johnson State, Vermont, and this is when I re-entered the public school system. And here began several years of really learning about people and the diversity that you experience when you're in a classroom. A reflection for me on the difference between the private versus public education, both were incredibly important and rigorous learning experiences. But the major difference was that the private experience, they guide you based on what you're passionate about rather than one model for all children. And there's benefits and pros and cons to both of these approaches. But when I'm thinking about what influences me as a teacher, my public school education really influenced, my opening my eyes to working with diverse populations. After we moved to Vermont, we came back down to the Philly area again, where I'm from, born and raised, and I attended another private alternative school up at Tina's, which also was an incredibly pivotal experience in my educational career because here their philosophy was that we are all inherently creative and can learn, and that we just need environments and people to help us move and create our higher forms of learning. And Apatina's really taught me about how to learn, how to be passionate about my own learning, and what is needed to create change based on learning. I went for a short time in college to this school called Bradford College up in Massachusetts, which was also another progressive school. I really embrace social justice, progressive paradigm, and this school was again pivotal in helping me to embrace my artistic what do I want to say? My artistic essence, my personality, who I was, and how that was important in the world. Unfortunately, like most small schools from the 90s on, they struggled and eventually closed. And I came down to Arcadia University, which is outside of the Philadelphia region, where I focused on pre-art therapy and the fine arts in my training. Here is when I really developed my passion for making jewelry, and it's still something I'm passionate about today, part of my self-care. Finally, I went to Walden University for both my master's and doctoral degree. I found it to be a highly supportive environment for students who learn differently and or have to work full-time. And at that point in the early 2000s when I attended, it was very unusual for colleges to develop programs that met the needs of students, of working students. And Walden was one of the few institutions that allowed me to continue my higher education. And the counseling program here and the doctoral program at Walden are next level. And I am happy to talk with anybody about attending their university and how it supported my long-term ability to be in this field and to stay relevant and not to get burned out. They really gave me a lot of gifts. So what did the experiences teach me? Well, ultimately, I believe that relationships are the basis for which education occurs. I love to connect with my students. I hope that you will reach out to me. I love to connect with you and hear about what you're passionate about. I like to support you within your own career development. I consider self-reflection a critical part of the learning process in connection with a discipline and structured learning environment. I think it's important for each learner to know how they learn best. And so I hope that you, as you're moving through the learning process, aren't just thinking about what you're learning, but how you learn best. This is also critical to being a good counselor and counselor educator. Finally, I know that, especially now, certainly with COVID, but really for all of us to learn and to be successful, we need to be flexible, be courageous, be proactive with our communication, and please know that there's nothing more important to me than creating safety in the classroom. My research really focuses on looking at how VR, virtual reality, and other immersive technology tools can support a just and mindful larger community as a whole. I recently finished a grant exploring teaching mindfulness in VR in an interdisciplinary setting at my university, and I'd love to talk to anybody about this if your research interests align with mine. Along with VR, I am also very much interested in looking at contemplative and mindfulness practices within counselor education. In my counseling work, and thus within the classroom, I utilize relational cultural theory. I absolutely believe that people grow through and towards relationships, that this is a sign of healthy functioning, and that there should be mutuality in that experience and authenticity. In the classroom, I'm looking to see if you have more energy and clarity and a sense of self-worth, that you want to have more relationship with myself and the others in the classroom, and that you want to work harder. These are all signs to me that learning is unfolding as it should. I think mindfulness is incredibly critical to the learning process. It helps us to heal and grow. It helps us to become a counselor. It helps us to prevent burnout, develop self-compassion, create and engage in social change. So I hope that everybody is developing and maintaining some type of mindfulness practice, movement-based, sitting. There's so many different practices that we can draw from, and I'm happy to talk to you about this as well. Creativity to me is relational glue. You know, we counselors have to be able to think on our feet, accept ambiguity, meet people where they are. All of that takes the ability to be creative and engage in creative expression. And so whenever I have an opportunity to bring the creative process into the classroom, I will. I also draw from self-efficacy and learning theory. I believe small steps lead to large changes. I really am more of a strength-based kind of person. I offer more strength-based feedback than anything. I'm always thinking about how I can do better scaffolding, so please let me know if there's ways I can support you in your learning process. Questioning is critical to enhancing our learning process. I use Socratic questioning, and I think it's, and hope that you will as well. And if you have any questions about my questions, again, let's keep in relationship with each other and keep discussing. Small group work and skills. We don't learn skills without lots of practice. It's the 10,000 hour rule. It's how I learned to become a counselor. Practice, practice, practice. Ultimately, of course, as a counselor educator, I have to think about gatekeeping in the profession. And for me, this really is me thinking and reflecting is this student somebody that I want to be able to treat my family? Do they have the basic counseling skills of acceptance, awareness, empathy, compassion, active listening? Are they respectful of boundaries? And most importantly, open to feedback. I believe that all counselors should have their own counselor. It's critical to providing good care, taking breaks. There's that proactive communication again, maintaining professionalism, communicating in a way that you would as though with each other in the classroom, as though you are working with each other. It's a good time to get into practice. Time management is critical. Is this program the right fit for you? Not all programs meet the needs of all students. We're just not at that point in history. And so, is this program a good fit for you? And always from a place of strength. It isn't, what's going on with the student. It's how can we help the student to thrive? So when you have a classroom with me, there will be some structure. I will definitely value our connection. You'll see me engage in modeling. There'll be space for group teaching and sharing. We all have rich lives and experiences to bring into the classroom, and I want to honor that. We will absolutely always start with some mindful breathing, if not throughout the process. Questions, reflections, practice, lots of playing whenever possible. Play is critical to learning and skill building. We'll do some longer term projects. I want to see that you can carry an idea throughout the course. There'll be written assignments, written feedback. I definitely value giving and providing narrative feedback. I want to see that we're both, thinking about relational cultural theory. There's mutuality in thinking about shared assessment. So how do you think you're doing in the learning process? What am I observing? And how can we bring that reflectiveness together to create the best learning experience for you? And I also hope that there are opportunities for you to engage in self-directed learning, problem and case-based learning. I'm a big fan, because of VR, of simulated education and the use of technology to create access in the classroom. And finally, there's nothing more important than being passionate about your learning. I hope you will enjoy this time together as we work through this class assignment. And if you have any issues at all, please email me anytime. I look forward to this learning experience together.